different military places, really thinking just about my migraines. And I sent an email to all the branches saying if there's any kind of special research I could be a benefit to the public and to the United States, I would like to volunteer myself and my son, as long as my son is okay, is what I said. I mean, not volunteer my son for torture, but I was thinking like some kind of I was not thinking of being tortured or drugged. But I was basically volunteering myself in the sense of, if you'd like to find out, talk to me about what might be best for migraines. And then I even said, or something really top secret. And here I sent this email after I was being tortured by my own federal government. I sent an email like that to all the military branches. I mean, right then and there, they thought they had a free ride. And how ironic that here I was, an MK Ultra kid who had been conditioned and trained her entire life and tortured by the United States government, and then I'm taking painkillers. Everybody knows that I'm on like high levels of painkillers, and one day I just get this idea of like volunteering myself for top secret research. Anyone in their right mind knows that I was too incapacitated to consent to being part of any research. I was taking a high level of drugs. There was no consent to do research. And I think about it and I just think, I was clearly brainwashed. I was brainwashed into being a patriot when my own country was torturing the living daylights out of me and my son, which is what I think happened to my parents. They got tortured as kids, and then they get conditioned to feel that they're patriotic in some way, or helping the country, and maybe they can do more to help the country. And then they find out, it backfires because the country is going to torture the living daylights out of them and their kids. So I retracted my statement that I sent to them, and I said I retracted completely. And it didn't matter. I mean, they had already started torturing me and my son before I ever made a statement, before I ever wrote an email to the military, which made it look like I would consent to something like that. And they knew that my medical history, that I was on painkillers, so there was never any kind of validation for them to do anything that they did to me or my son. And they basically tried to kill us. We basically almost died. So then my son's loss of speech, that occurred in Methow. That occurred before I ever sent anything to the military later at a different house. So all of these things were happening, and at some point I started contacting the Department of Energy, telling them I was being tortured. And I contacted other people too, because I thought, even if I'm volunteering myself to do something patriotic, I would never think that my country would torture me and my son. And this is even after I had an idea that somebody was triggering migraines against me. I didn't know which group for sure, but I knew that it was being done, and it wasn't natural. I mean, I think I was just, on painkillers and out of it, and being able to make a reasonable decision in that way. So then my son and I decided, I knew that the only way that we could get out of that situation was to leave the country. And basically we were forced to leave the country because we were tortured so badly. And right about that time, someone made yet another CPS complaint, and it was something really dumb again. It was like another thing. They told me what it was, or they came out to my house, and they saw me and my son outside in the snow. I was pulling him around on a sled. He was bundled up with gloves and a hat and a coat, and laughing as I pulled him around on this little sled outside. And this is while we're being tortured. But during the day, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what happened to me at night. Just as, all day today I was being tortured, here, although it had nothing like the level of what was happening then. I was still trying to function like a normal parent and pulling him around doing some fun things. So 2 women came out from CPS and said, could we, just asked me a few questions, and they said, well, could we go inside and sit down for a little bit? And I said, well, why? I said, I'm outside playing with my son right now. And we had just gone out there, and we weren't out there that long. He wasn't ready to stop playing. And they said, well, maybe we could. I said, I have sent a letter to your offices saying that you're welcome to come by and any time that you like and observe me and my son playing, or in a public setting. I said, or if you want to come over and visit us in the house, just let me know when, and that's fine too. If you want to. I had sent them an email telling them to please feel free to visit me and my son, and they could even visit us in our house, or outside of our house, or in public. But on that particular day, since we were playing outside in the snow, I asked if we could go ahead and schedule it for a different time. Or, actually, they didn't even ask to go in my house, I don't think. I think they just came out and asked me questions. And my son was obviously happy. So I did want to know more about what it was about, like what somebody was claiming at that point. And they said, and they just left, and I didn't think I was going to hear from them again. And then they called up and said, we would like to come out and visit you and your son at your house in about 3 days. And so there was never an investigation. There was no court process. Nobody had said, we think there's something wrong and we want to offer you services. I mean, I was trying to offer myself services and social services, like even go to drug hab and prove be assessed for being drug seeking or not, and they didn't want to do that. So, and that was social services, not CPS. So CPS had no case started against me and my son at all. Any complaint that had been in the past had been discovered to have been completely incorrect and unfounded. Completely shut down, closed, that's the end of that. I gave them evidence on every single situation that proved beyond any doubt that I was being lied about. I mean, if anything, I had evidence that I was being lied about repeatedly, which is why I went to the police. So by the time they sent this email, there was no investigation. There wasn't anything. They basically took me up on my offer when I sent them a letter and email to 2 different individuals at their offices. They took me up on my offer to come to my house and visit with me and my son. So I didn't have a problem with that. But because I was being harassed all the time, and because we were being tortured more than anything else, I knew that we were being driven out of our where we were living. And I was tired of being harassed, I mean, repeatedly over and over, when I had tried to get police to do something about it, and they were responsible for doing something. And I put all of my son's things in the car, the things that we needed, and basically some things to play with, our clothes, not everything, but just a few things. And I knew somebody would be by at the house in a few days to see the cat. I know that the cat needed to be looked after and fed and whatever, so I wasn't worried about the cat. The cat had plenty to eat in the house, and water, and litter box. So there was nothing, to be worried about with abandoning the cat. The cat would be found after we were gone, and that would not be a problem. But I took off with my son at night, and I was following this car that has some kind of Wales, like the country of Wales, bumper sticker on the back of it, and I don't remember too many other cars being around us. But it wasn't just me that was being hit. My son was getting, what I say, hit, and where all of a sudden he reacted like, just like the cat did, to like a jolt. I mean, I just kind of acted it out, but this weird jolt and then a scream and an involuntary cry or shriek that came out of him. That not only happened to him, my son, a baby, it happened to the cat. The cat was acting in the same way. And so my son and I were driving to the Canadian border, and as I have said before, my birth certificate was missing from my house. So somebody had taken my birth certificate, I think not hoping that I couldn't get over to Canada. And they already knew that I might go there because Krista Schneider knew, and all these people expected me to be driven that way. And when I got to the border, I had an extra copy of my birth certificate and everything else. I had everything that my son needed. Basically what I had for my son, let me give you the exact documents. This is before they required like a passport to go across the border, and like those passport laws changed. For my son, I had my son's birth certificate. I had his social security card, which I had tried to get it revoked, but I took his card anyway just in case they thought it was an extra form of proof. And I had paperwork from child support, which is part of social services and CPS. It's from the child support people, and that paperwork showed that there was no father of interest, that the father was unknown, they had closed that part of things. There was no one to go after for child support, and I was the legal guardian. So I didn't just take my son's U.S. ID. I took documentation from Washington State that proved I was the sole legal guardian of my child, and that there was no paternal interest. That's what I had for my son. For myself, I had my birth certificate. These were all official certificates. I had my official birth certificate and my driver's license and my social security card. So I had 3 documents for myself of just ID stuff. And then for my son, I had 2 forms of ID for him, and I also had proof that I was the only legal guardian. Because I knew that if I went to a different country, what if they thought that maybe there was a father or something. So it's not like I didn't think ahead. I thought about, what might someone lie about once I was there, or think or worry about. And my goal was to go there for a couple days, look around, and then possibly, and if things looked okay, maybe try to apply for political asylum, or basically I was thinking of to continue moving towards Toronto. If I had enough money for gas to get quite a distance, and I was sure that I could be resourceful and come up with other ways to get to where we needed to be in this kind of an emergency. I had less than $400 with me, but as I had stated when I first went to Canada, it was basically enough money to go there for a couple days of looking around. And when it comes to quote-unquote insufficient funds for political asylum, there's no such thing as insufficient funds when somebody is asking for political asylum. You don't tell a refugee and somebody who's fleeing torture from one country, I'm sorry, you have to go back to your country because you don't have enough money.